Hello, I'm Robin Smith, trauma and relationship coach and the founder of the Rock Your Relationship Sisterhood group on Facebook. Thanks for joining me today. And today I'm talking about the real work, the inner work. When you have a trigger in your relationship with a friend or a parent or maybe even your child or your partner, what is the real work here? So often when you get triggered, that we use this word commonly now, or you get upset or agitated by something that happened in an interaction, you tend to have your go-to strategy for that. What do you do with that? Do you get mad at them? Do you judge yourself? Do you run away? Do you yell? Do you complain about their communication style, the words they said, or the tone they had? So there's lots of ways you might respond to like something that didn't go the way you would have hoped. And the thing is that stuff happens all the time, right? And for one person, it's no big deal. And for another person, it's a big deal, even in the very same dynamic or situation. If you were to change out the person, one person would say, whatever. And the other one's like, can you believe that? So we know that we each have our own personal history and what we're bringing to each relationship that can really be a deciding factor in how we're responding to what happens. So if you find that you get easily triggered or emotional by something and it happens maybe repeatedly with the same person, or it's happening over in different relationships or over a long period of time, and you find the same kind of familiar trigger for you, then often, usually I will say, the deeper work is to go in here instead of out there. So instead of making them wrong, or I'm not saying they're being skillful, they may not be skillful, but the more transformational work is to look at your own triggers. Why is this so hard for me? Why is this so painful for me? Why is it hurting so much? These are good questions to be asking. Why does it spark so much emotion for me? Does this feel familiar? So these are good questions you might want to ask yourself when something gets really triggered in you in an interaction. Now, I'm not saying if you're being abused or mistreated that it's all about you. I'm not saying that, but for most of us, most of the time, if that's not the case, then we can be looking at these types of questions, because we're the common denominator, right? And if we just always make it about the communication or whatever's happening on the surface and how somebody didn't say it right, or if we always go back to our own ways of handling it, then we're not getting, to the deeper truth there. And because of the work I do, I can really see that it's really kind of hard to do it on your own. So because you will naturally go back to your, what we call your survival strategy, your pattern of coping with something difficult. So I was just speaking with a client, and in her case, if somebody wasn't interacting with her the way she would have hoped, she wasn't getting engaged with the way she wanted, she went, it's about me. I'm not interesting enough. I'm boring. I'm not lovable. I'm not likable. So that's one way to cope with that. Another way might be, well, he's not that interesting. Why didn't he talk to me? So you can see that it's up to each of us with whatever lenses we're wearing to interpret from our own inner experiences, like what is happening, and we color it because of our life story, our history, our strategies. So other people might get mad. Other people might, go down a negative inner spiral. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. Poor me. Nobody likes me. This is definitely somewhere I used to go, especially as a child and a younger adult. But So it's hard to do the deeper work on your own because you're so easily going into your pattern of how you cope. So I want to underline that one again. And that's why it's really helpful to have somebody with you who's supporting you, who can track you and question where you're going, right? Because you're immediately going to, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, I'm not interesting, I'm not good enough. And then you're believing that, and then you're acting as if that's true. So in this client's case, she acts as if that was true, and then she keeps herself small. Then she doesn't speak up very much, and then people don't engage her because she's really shy or held back. And you might have your own version of that. But when you can have someone with you, tracking you and questioning these beliefs that you've been holding and questioning how you're coping with the situation, you're more likely, when you have someone who knows how to do that well, to get underneath it and get really into the more source aspect of what's going on and why you might be carrying that belief and how it may or may not be serving you and what might actually be true inside of that. So I wanted to bring that forward because I see just so many times with my clients that people have been in these patterns for years, or decades. We can keep the pattern going if we don't get to the bottom of it and keep believing these stories that people don't like me, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not interesting, or I'm not lovable, when that's not the case. So the real transformation is also when we, instead of just making it about them or making it about us, that we get underneath the story and we get into the emotions more, and we ask ourselves, or we inquire, or we get someone to help us inquire, what am I really feeling about this right now? Or what have I been afraid to feel about this? Or what have I been afraid to face or not willing to face about this situation? What's really true? What's the deeper truth? So these are some questions you can try asking yourself, but if you can't get to that, you can work with somebody who can support you in that. And then to work with this emotion that's really there underneath. So in the work that I teach, often we find that anger and sadness are pretty core emotions, but we have our go-to. Some people, especially women, tend to cry more than they're willing to be angry. And some people, it's the opposite. So sometimes it's the other emotion that's actually at the core that we need to get to and understand and be with and explore. And that's the deeper work that I do with my clients and in my groups. So I'll share an example with you from my life where I've been in a really sensitive time. You can see I have a different background. I'm in the city of San Jose. My husband's been very sick with a bacterial infection in the hospital here. So I'm staying at a friend's place, which I'm so grateful for. But I had a friend recently who promised to help me out in a certain way, and then she backed out. And I was in a really sensitive place emotionally, and it was okay that she backed out, and I understood her reasons. But it was the way that she framed it that I just I was really affected by it, and I was hurt and upset. And as I did the deeper work with the support person in my life, my coach, I was really able to see that this wasn't about her. I wasn't mad at her, and it's, I didn't like her approach, but the fact that I got so triggered was the point. That what was this really bringing up for me? What was so painful about this? What was so hard for me about this? And I found some deeper truths about my own childhood wounds with my mother and her lack of availability for me when she was going through a divorce with my father. So I'm not going to tell you my whole trauma story right now, but the point is, it's so easy to look out there and, she said she was mean, or she was harsh, or that wasn't very skillful, or that wasn't the right words, or whatever one might do with something. But but then you end up creating distance and then you create separation. And I know that that's not what I want to do with this person. I love this person. So it's more like, oh, this is my pain. This is my wound. And that's the deeper work, is to go, what is this for me? What's so painful for me? What is the work that needs to be done? So I'm not so easily triggered by something like that. It wasn't worth getting that triggered. I didn't like it, didn't feel good, but and it wasn't like it wasn't a huge trigger for me, but it was enough for me to go, gosh, I want to look at that. So I invite you into this inquiry today to do the deeper work, to get support with it if you don't have somebody supporting you. To reach out to me if you'd like my support. I've got some room in my calendar at the moment. So, but that's where the deepest transformation is. I love the metaphor of rearranging the furniture on the Titanic. If you know this story about the Titanic, the gigantic ship that went down, and if all you're doing is rearranging the furniture as the ship is going down and sinking, you're not fixing the problem, right? So when we just try to fix on the surface layers, we're not getting to the real core of the issue. And when we get to the core of the issue, things really change. I see this all the time in my clients. They feel lighter, they get more confident, they get more strong and courageous, and they have better boundaries, and they don't react as much. So this is possible when you do the deeper work. I hope that's been helpful. Please check the link below if you'd like to schedule a relationship breakthrough session with me and get support around what is the deeper work for you, and to see if it might be a fit to do more work. Totally fine. And if it doesn't feel like a fit, it's totally fine too. I'm happy to help you kind of understand what might be some of the issues you're facing and how to get some clarity around that. So that's my relationship breakthrough session. If you're interested, there's a link below. And please like and subscribe. That will help more people see this video. Please feel free to share the link if you know others can benefit. And thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you soon.